I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume, so I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. And we are again reading in 2 Corinthians. We're getting near the end now. Recently, he's been talking about the generous donations to the church welfare system of the time. He's really trying to get them to live as closely to the law of consecration as possible. This whole epistle has been a kind of commendation and encouragement for the saints as they have brought themselves back together as a church. They've been kind of straightening themselves out, and Paul is writing to commend them for this. And at this time, as I say, he is talking about the church welfare system of the day. So now we continue this in chapter 10. But I do want to mention that in chapter 10 there are no Joseph Smith translations, so we will not be reading that. So let us read 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Now I, Paul, myself, beseech you by the meekness and gentleness of Christ, who in presence am based among you, but being absent am bold towards you. But I beseech you that I may not be bold when I am present with that confidence. But I beseech you that I may not be bold when I am present with that confidence, wherewith I think to be bold against some, which think of us as if we walked according to the flesh. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God, to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ, and having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. Do ye look on things after the outward appearance? If any man trust to himself that he is Christ's, let him of himself think this again, that as he is Christ's, even so are we Christ's. For though I should boast somewhat more of our authority, which the Lord hath given us for edification, and not for your destruction, I should not be ashamed, that I may not seem as if I would terrify you by letters. For his letters, say they, are weighty and powerful, but his bodily presence is weak, and his speech contemptible. Let such an one think this, that such as we are in word by letters when we are absent, such will we be also indeed when we are present. For we dare not make ourselves of the number, or compare ourselves with some that commend themselves, but they, measuring themselves by themselves, and comparing themselves among themselves, are not wise. But we will not boast of things without our measure, but according to the measure of the rule which God hath distributed to us, a measure to reach even unto you. For we stretch not ourselves beyond our measure, as though we reached not unto you. For we are come as far as to you also in preaching the gospel of Christ, not boasting of things without our measure, that is, of other men's labors, but having hope, when your faith is increased, that we shall be enlarged by you according to our rule abundantly, to preach the gospel in the regions beyond you, and not to boast in another man's line of things made ready to our hand. But he that glorieth, let him glory in the Lord. For not he that commendeth himself is approved, but whom the Lord commendeth. So we have two different accusations against Paul and the brethren that have been made, and Paul is responding to here. First, that even though they're preaching the gospel, they are living according to the flesh. In other words, they're not really practicing what they preach. Paul is saying, no, we live in the world, but not of the world. We are not partakers of the world's iniquity. We are following Christ. But yes, we live among other people. We are part of society. But while we are a part of society, we don't live according to their customs. We live according to the law of God. Now, the other accusation made here is that, yeah, he's a good writer, but when he's actually here, you'll see he doesn't really speak very well, and he doesn't really do what he's talking about. He can write a good letter, but he's not really a good guy. He doesn't do the work. And what is their yardstick? What is their measure, as he says, is that all the people who are making this accusation, they're saying, we are the standard. We know what is good in leadership. Yeah, he can write a good letter, but he doesn't act like we do, so he's not a good man. And that's what he's saying here. He's saying, look, I don't act like they do. I act the way God wants me to act. I act as Christ acted. because Christ is my measure, not them. But what Paul's saying here is that if you hold yourself as the standard, then it's meaningless. You know, they're saying Paul's not a good person because he doesn't do what we do. And Paul's saying, no, my standard is God, is Christ. That's what I measure myself by. You measure yourself by yourself, you got nothing. I have a different measure that proves that I am a good man. And we have the same thing going on today with a lot of atheists, but also a lot of Christians. That we get this kind of moral relativism where it's, if I think it's good, then it has to be good. And if I think it's bad, it has to be bad. That's why we get a lot of people complaining about what's recorded in the Bible. Why would God command Israel to conquer the Canaanites? And these kind of things where they're holding themselves as the measure of goodness rather than looking to God as the measure of goodness. And they're trying to, atheists are just saying, get rid of the measure. Christians are saying they are the measure. Paul is saying none of that is going to get you to goodness. None of that's going to make you good. What makes you good is modeling yourself after a higher standard. And that standard is Christ. Now, there's no Joseph Smith translation, so we leave this here, and I will see you in chapter 11.